Welcome to Blackbriar Gaming. In preparation for the new edition of Horus Heresy, Warhammer Community are going legion by legion, teasing us with rule snippets from the upcoming release. Today, we will be looking at the 17th Legion, the Wordbearers. Just a quick note before we get into it. A subscribe and a like really helps us reach a bigger audience. So if you enjoyed the video, please hit those buttons down below. The Wordbearers, the legion that people love to hate. I personally have a mixed relationship with the Wordbearers. Their lore is cool. They're the architects of the Heresy, which you have to respect. And they look fantastic on the tabletop. Well, most of their miniature line. But it almost seems like Black Library was on a hateful mission to character assassinate Erebus and Lorgar. Some of the Heresy novels make them out to be very, very unlikable. Erebus in particular. Even the traitor legions don't like that guy. I mean, no one does. Not anyone. Saying that, if you are an Erebus fan, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to have that debate, because, well, you're wrong. But, look, I was as much a victim as you all were from Black Library's mission to make the Wordbearers look weak and kind of like losers. I turned a bit against them, but I do see the error of my ways. Doing a bit of research, I really like, in particular, their pre-Lorgar lore, when they were known as the Imperial Heralds, as they scour the galaxy, zealously burning the temples and cults in the name of the Imperial Truth. It's cool stuff. Who doesn't love a bit of cleansing flame to win the spiritual war for humanity's soul? It all goes steeply downhill for the 17th Legion when Lorgar turns up and turns them to worshipping the Emperor. After getting embarrassed in front of the Ultramarines for their idolatry ways, the descent to chaos and setting up of the Heresy is actually a really interesting read. Lorgar and Erebus play this amazing long game to orchestrate Horus's fall to chaos and punish the Emperor for spurning their worship. But let's be honest, if you're choosing to play Wordbearers, it's probably so you can get some amazing looking Galvor back, or Blessed Sons, for those that don't speak Colchizian, onto the table. Demons are great. Marines are great. Marines possessed by demons, by proxy, must be even greater. But enough ramblings on the bearers of the word, let's get into these rules. Now, remember how I said the Black Library seemed to have a vendetta against the 17th Legion? Well, apparently they've snuck their way into the Heresy rules design team, because I think these rules are pretty average. But let's take a close look and I'll let you decide. So the first rule, the Legion-wide rule that we have, is called True Believers. I just don't think this is good. Not even just this is okay. Nope, I just think it's bad. And this is why. So, hang on, let's go back, let's read it. We have to read the rule. Here we go, True Believers. A model with this special rule may never have its leadership characteristic modified below a value of 6. Furthermore, if one or more models with this special rule are part of a combat that results in a draw, then a side that includes one or more models at the end of the fight subphase with this special rule is counted as having won the combat by 1 point. If both sides include models with this special rule, then the combat remains a draw. So, Wordbearers on Wordbearers, they're drawing all day long. So, here we go. How this rule kind of works in my mind. You're going to be passing morale checks around 40% of the time when using this rule, that leadership value of 6. 40% doesn't feel great. It's not exactly something to write home about, but while this may come into effect when facing shooting attacks, if also under the effects of fear, it's more likely that this will be impactful in situations where you've lost a combat. So let's explore that. Well, here's how I see that playing out. If you're down to worse than leadership 6 in the first place, you've probably taken a bit of a beating in that combat, which means you were likely assaulted and in an unfavourable combat. If you've charged in, whiffed your dice and lost, well, that's another matter. And look, I blame you for that. Furthermore, if you've been assaulted and it's an unfavourable combat, it's probably your turn next, right? If you've just lost the combat, you got assaulted, in an assault you don't want to be in, you've lost, it's probably your turn next. And that enemy unit that's mincing its way through your unreasonably brave squad on leadership 6, who's decided to stick around, that enemy unit is now protected from shooting. Unless I've missed something, there's a way to voluntarily fall back in your turn, which I don't believe there is. I believe you can fail morale checks, unless there's rules that say you can't, and that is a thing. But I don't think in your turn you can fall back while in combat. And I could be wrong. The withdraw reaction looks a bit weirdly worded, and some might try and exploit that to do it. Let me know if you've seen the rules and you can actually fall back in your turn before the shooting phase, in which case I'll retract my comment. But From what I understand, you've lost the combat, you're getting destroyed, you've decided to stick around with your mighty leadership of 6 if you actually pass that, which is 40% of the time, and now you're protecting the enemy who's probably going to finish you off in their turn. Doesn't seem wonderful. Now, there may be situations where this comes in handy, sure. Certainly, if you've got multiple units at a combat that you've lost and you want to fall back without the threat of getting run down, then let's say it's 2 units, you leave behind the weaker unit, the chaff that you don't really care about, to cover your more expensive unit that can still do some stuff, some damage in future turns, to cover the retreat of that unit, right? You let them fall back, not going to get chased down, while your mighty leadership 6 chaff maybe has a 40% chance of sticking around, right? Leadership 6 is better than nothing. But this is hardly game-changing stuff, and it's only going to come up rarely. I'm really having to dig for situations where this is going to have to come in handy. Now, remember how I mentioned fear before? Well, the word bearers actually have a corrupted mechanic that ignores fears. We're getting into leaks here, people, which kind of actually makes this special rule even more useless. You're going to corrupt your infantry, right? So your infantry and your dreadnoughts can get corrupted. Dreadnoughts don't care much about leadership, but your infantry certainly does. But when they're corrupted, they ignore fear. And when I see this rule really coming in handy is when you're under the effects of some pretty significant fear, which you kind of won't be when you're word bearers. So the rules don't go well. They contradict each other. Furthermore, corrupted means that when you fail morale checks, you take D3 wounds instead of falling back, which isn't that bad. That's the whole point of being corrupted, right? That's what's protecting you from falling back and getting run down. Why do you need 2 rules that do that? So word bearers infantry, at least, don't actually care that much about failing morale in the first place. Other units that aren't infantry, sure, another story, but majority of your army, probably infantry, especially if you're a word bearer. Now, sure, the corrupted upgrade costs points, but it's also super cool. It means you cause fear yourself, amongst other things, which is really nice. So why wouldn't you be using it? It's kind of the whole point of the word bearers is make all your units corrupted. So why have you now got 2 rules helping you to just stick around when you're losing combat? I want to be doing better things with my Legion-wide rules. Now, if you disagree and I've got it wrong, let me know in the comments. Wait a minute. I almost forgot the winning drawn combat thing. That's how much I didn't care about it. All right, so the second part of this rule, in the whole winning the fight subphase by 1 point when you draw, there will be once every couple of games when this happens. Which isn't, it's not uncommon-ish. It will happen. And your opponent will say, dang, drawn combat. We're going into a scenario here. And you'll look them in the eye, and you will cry, "Not today, loyalist scum, for I am a true believer." And your opponent will quiver in fear as they roll and probably pass their morale check because they're only at -1. Okay, let's say theoretically they fail it, and you run them down like dogs. Look, it's going to feel great. It's going to feel really, really good, because your Legion rule actually came in handy. So look, this part of it, it's not terrible. It's nice to have. It'll be cool when it happens, and it will happen every now and again. But having a Legion special rule for something that might not even occur in a game and probably will only occur in once every 2 or 3 games seems like a real wasted opportunity to me. All right, that's enough bashing on true believers. Let's look at the second part of the rules that we got today for the word bearers. It is a psychic weapon, a ranged psychic weapon called Hellfire. The range is template, the strength is 7, AP 4, it's an assault 1 weapon, it's rending 6+, which is nice on a template weapon. It's deflagrate, also nice on a template weapon, kind of. Psychic focus. Now, psychic focus is where we come into issues. So the rule, psychic focus, before making any to hit rolls with this weapon, the psyker must make a psychic check. If the check is passed, then the psyker may attack as normal using the profile shown for this weapon. If the check is failed, then the psyker suffers perils of the warp. There we go. And if the model is not removed as a casualty, then it may attack as normal, but may not use this weapon. So you're down to your pistol at that stage. So let's look at who has access to this. So your Centurions, which are being upgraded to a Diabolist for 25 points, and your Praetors that are paid 25 points for Burning Law. That's pretty much it from what I can understand. Maybe some units get access. I didn't dig too deeply into it. But the point I'm trying to make here is this isn't free. This weapon isn't free like some of the other weapons, like the Chain Axes for the World Eaters, for instance. You're paying 25 points for this. That's good points for this and something else. We'll get into that for a second. In fact, we'll get into it now. So at least for your 25 points, you don't just get this Hellfire psychic weapon. You get another Diabolism power, which I think is a bit more interesting, and it helps you in combat, charging in. But look, we didn't get those rules today, so we're just going to talk about Hellfire, and I'll leave those rules for later. I know, such a tease. So look, Hellfire, it's fine. Template weapons, they have their own inherent weaknesses, which I've discussed previously. I'm not a giant fan of them for various reasons. The high strength on it, though, is nice and quite rare on a template weapon. So against things that are tougher than regular Marines, you're still wounding on good numbers. However, those tougher squads usually come in smaller numbers, so you're then getting less bang for your buck out of your template, and you deflecate rules and your rending, etc. So, high strength template weapons, when they've still got not a great AP, it's awkward. And the AP is the issue here. It's a whole lot of meh. Let's be honest, AP4 may as well be AP nothing against most armies in the Horus Heresy. But it's worse, because you know you're paying a premium for it, or sacrificing something else to get it. AP4 weapons, it's like, ooh, look at this, you got AP4. We're gonna, I don't know, make you pay an extra 10 points for that. It sucks. So yeah, meh. Rending 6+ will go off a couple of times if you're lucky, but nothing huge to write home about. Same, definitely great. It needs a lot of unsaved wounds to go through to then be impactful. So on just one weapon, and a template weapon where you don't know how many models you're going to get under that template as well, it's not blowing my mind. If this had AP3, whole different situation. That one pip of AP would make all the difference. In the end, this weapon that you've paid 25 points for, it's going to kill a few Marines. You'll feel cool for doing it, but you've got to remember, you've got to pass that psychic check to use this power, which you've paid quite a few points for. And for that reason, this one becomes a miss. It was okay before, but having to pass the psychic check, which, you know, your leadership's going to be probably 9 for the most part. If you put this on a Praetor, maybe 10. So there's still a chance. There's still a chance that you're going to fail that leadership check, and it's going to, on the morale check, psychic test check, whatever you want to call it. It's really going to hurt, because not only is your weapon going to do nothing, you're going to take a wound going in, or who knows what's happening with that Perils of the Warp. A heavy flamer is kind of doing the same thing to basic Marines as this. It's one less good to wound, I suppose, but you don't have that risk of the Perils of the Warp, so I'd probably prefer the heavy flamer every time. Furthermore, if you're shooting this with a character, you're about to charge into combat, which is where you probably actually want to be. So do you want to risk taking a wound going into combat, noting that 30k characters, for those that are used to 40k, don't have that many wounds? It's risky. It's risky, and you want to be in combat and be able to soak up some damage, depending on what weapon you're swinging with, because initiative's a thing. Now, yes, I know I said heavy flamers before, and you can't put heavy flamers on these characters, but that's what dedicated heavy sports squads are for. If you want to chuck down a bunch of templates, grab one of those and jump them out of a rhino and have a good time. This Hellfire psychic weapon, not for me. And that brings us to the end of our Heresy chats for today. Thank you so much for watching. Overall, these rules, bit of a letdown. But luckily, you'll be relieved to know that the Wordbearers have plenty of other cool things going on for them, which makes up for a lackluster Legion special rule. Make sure to keep rolling those dice and getting hyped for Heresy.